Good morning, students. This video is for class 6 science. And if you remember, we have completed till sedimentation and decantation. Today, we will start with filtration. Today, we will start with filtration. So, this process of filtration is also related to the process of sedimentation and decantation. After the sedimentation and the decantation process is over, this filtration process is continue. Now, perform. Now, what is this process? The process of using a porous medium means very small pores of a medium, a substance where you have very small pores, especially that cotton cloths or maybe filter paper. They are very small pores where through which water can drip, but then very small particles also cannot pass through. The process of using a porous medium to separate fine insoluble solid components suspended in a liquid is called filtration. Now, after pouring, after the process of decantation, where you pour the clear top layer of the clear water in a separate container, it still contains some insoluble, some substances which are very fine particles. Now, this process of filtration helps you to clear those fine particles that is mixed in the water using a filter paper. Filtration is a simple method that is used to separate mixtures in our daily life. When a mixture is filtered, the fine insoluble solid components accumulate in the filter, which gets collected in the filter. While only the liquid passes through the filter. For instance, while preparing a lemon juice, the suspended pulp particles and seeds of lemon can be separated by the filtration method. So when you make lemon juice, you add water, you add sugar, you add lime to that. Now you have pulp of the lime, which does not get dissolved in the water. So when you take a seed, when you take some method where you can actually filter the solution, filter the lemon juice, that filter substance, filtration substance like sieve or maybe a cotton cloth, where you separate the solution from the pulp and all. So this seeds of the lime gets collected. This process is known as filtration. Likewise, while preparing tea, the unwanted leaves can be removed by filtration. Filters are different with different pores are available. So you find filters with different holes, different size of different holes. The pores of the filter should be smaller than the size of the components that need to be removed. So the pores should be smaller than the particles that should be collected, that should be removed from that solution. Now suppose if you see that the holes are bigger than the particles that needs to be separated, that needs to be removed, if you pour the solution, everything will drip through the pores, through the filters. So you need to have the holes needs to be smaller than the particles that needs to be separated. Next is evaporation. Next is evaporation. The process in which a liquid changes into its gaseous state is called evaporation. So when you apply heat to liquid and the liquid changes into gaseous state, that is known as evaporation. This method involves the evaporation of the liquid components from the mixtures while the solid components is left behind. So this is a method where you heat the solution, the liquid components changes into converts into gaseous form and then flies away, and the solid particles remains behind. In this method, the liquid component is allowed to evaporate either by heating or by exposing the mixture to the sunlight. This is a method where you apply heat, or you can keep it under the sun open. The evaporated liquid escapes into the atmosphere and thus leaves behind only the solid components. So this process, the evaporated liquid escapes. The liquid changes into gaseous form and they escape. They move away, they fly away and keep leaving the solid particles behind. Evaporation is used to obtain common salt from seawater. So this method, evaporation, is a method which is used to get the salt that we eat from the seawater. Once the water of the sea is heated, the water escapes and the salt is remained behind. The salt is left behind. Now this salt undergoes through different purification process, and then it is made ready so that you can consume, so that you can take. Seawater contains large amount of salt dissolved in it. It is allowed to flow through narrow channels near coastal areas and is then collected in shallow ponds called salt pan. So this seawater, suppose this seawater made a channel like this, they allow it to flow from here and then gets collected in a place, in a pan. So shallow pond means deep pond, which is also known as salt pan. The water in this salt pan is allowed to dry in the sun. So this is open and it is allowed to evaporate. The liquid in this salt pan gets evaporated when the heat of the sun reaches there. As the water evaporates, solid crystals of salt are left behind. So when the water evaporates like this, the left over here are the solid salts. The salt is then collected and then sent for purification. As I have told you, after that these salts are undergoes different purification process, and then it is used for various purposes. The purified salt is used for various purposes. So children, by this we have come to the end of the explanation of this chapter. Please go through the videos properly, and after going through the videos, read the lesson and then try to solve the multiple choice answers, the short type answers, and then we can discuss in the next class. So for today, up to this much. Thank you, class.